Hallelujah. Praise God and welcome back to another episode of Rock of Ages. Today we will look at the miracle of Jesus. The miracle of 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. We know a lot of miracles that Jesus performed. But the one mistake that we do is that we look at these miracles in isolation. But today we will look at this miracle in relation with the previous miracles that Jesus had performed. This miracle is one of the 2 miracles that Jesus performed, which is recorded in all 4 Gospels. The only other miracle other than 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish feeding the 5,000, the only other miracle other than this is the resurrection of Christ. You can imagine the importance that this miracle has, that all 4 of the disciples recorded in their Gospels. In John chapter 6, when Jesus saw the multitude, he asked Philip, "Where will we buy bread for these people to eat?" But he said this to test Philip because he knew what he was about to do. See, the wonderful thing is that when we have a problem and Jesus asks us to solve that problem, he already knows what we are going to say, what we are going to do. He only tests us, The thing is, Philip replied saying, 200 denarii worth of bread is not enough for each one to receive even a little. See, Philip is the kind of guy who is very calculative. You and I, I'm sure that we will say that there won't be enough bread. 5,000 people. At that moment when Jesus asked Philip, in an instance he replied, 200 denarii would not be enough. He calculated the amount of bread required for 5,000 people. He calculated the price that would have taken, the amount of money would have taken to buy that bread. And then he came with a reply saying 200 denarii would not be enough to buy them even a little bit of bread. A lot of us are like Philip. We look at our problems. We calculate on them. We see it in a very worldly perspective. And we see how impossible it is. See, that is one part of this miracle. But before I get into that, I want to tell you one thing, that Jesus had performed many miracles before the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus had cleansed a leper. He had cleansed the leper. He had healed a paralyzed man just by word. In Matthew, it is written that a centurion came to Jesus. And when Jesus said that, "I am coming to your house to heal your servant," the centurion said that, "Lord, I am not worthy enough to house you in my house, to have you in my house. Only your word is enough." And Jesus said, "Your faith has made him well." And he spoke the words, and the paralyzed man was healed. Jesus calmed the storm. We know about this story a lot. We know this miracle, that Jesus calmed the storm. Jesus healed 2 men with demons. When he was at the banks of the lake of Galilee, he healed 2 men who had demons possessed in them. And then we know the miracle of Jairus' daughter, who was dead and who was raised to life. And at the same time, consequently, a woman who had had the problem of bleeding her whole life was healed when she touched the edge of Jesus' robe. The disciples, they already knew that Jesus had done so many miracles. He had calmed the storm. He had raised people from the dead. And yet, when he asked them the question, "How will we feed them?" why did they not expect a miracle? In our lives, a lot of us would have had testimonies that Jesus did this in my life. Jesus did this in my life, did that in my life. This prayer was answered, that prayer was answered. A lot of us will have certain moments in life when we realize that God worked in our lives. But why is it that when we look at the future of certain uncertain things, we fail to have faith in God? See, this is one thing that this miracle does. When you start looking at miracles in relation to each other, you will see the faith of the disciples. Jesus had done so many miracles. Just before the feeding of the 5,000, Peter even declared that you are the Son of God. Peter said to Jesus that you are the Son of God. And yet, when it was time to feed the 5,000, all they could see was their troubles, the worldly aspects. Coming back to Philip. Philip was a calculative man. Being a calculative man, you can even understand that he was an educated man to a certain level. He was able to look at his problems, categorize them, understand them carefully, maybe even come up with a solution. They needed more than 200 denaries. He even came up with a solution, but the only thing was that he was not able to act on that solution. And then we have another person here. We have Andrew. In verse 8, it says, one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, there is a little boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are these for so many people? See, at times you might be a Philip. You might see your problem. You might calculate on how impossible the situation is. You might calculate on how impossible the situation is. And sometimes you might be like Andrew. You might look at the things you have. You might see 5,000 people, and you might see 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread, and you might understand that it is not enough. See, Andrew had a little bit more faith, a little bit more faith than Philip. He didn't just stop at the impossible, but he went and looked for a solution. He came up with the 5 breads and 2 fish, but then he was like, it's not enough. It's nearly not enough. That's what we do on a daily basis, you know. We try looking for the solution. We go out looking for the solution to our problems. We find certain answers here and there, but these answers, they are never big enough. They are never mighty enough. They are never powerful enough for the problem to be over. See, but the thing is, when Jesus asked them this question, what are we going to do? Where will we buy bread for these people to eat? How are we going to feed these people? When Jesus asked this question, the answer, my friend, is already in the question. Jesus never said, how are you going to feed these people? Jesus never said, where are you going to buy the bread? Jesus never said you. Jesus said we. What we fail to do is, when we look at our problems, when we look at our troubles, when we look at our issues, we fail to invite Jesus. And we try to do it with our own might. See, you only need a miracle when you don't have a solution. You only need a miracle when the troubles are so big and you have nothing that you can do by yourself anymore. That's when you need a miracle. Many times, a lot of us, we want to see Jesus perform miracles in our lives. We want to see God perform miracles in our lives. But none of us ever want to be in a situation where a miracle is required. A miracle is required only when you have hit rock bottom, my friend. When all options are over and there is nowhere else to go. That is the only time a miracle is required. And when you hit that moment, when you are at that place, Jesus never told you to do it alone. My friends, today I wanted to tell you that the story about feeding the 5,000 was not about feeding the 5,000. It was about Jesus showing that you cannot do it alone, my friend. It was a story about telling Philip and telling Andrew That you see, without me, you might look at the problem. You might look at the facts. There are 5,000 people. We have 5 bread and 2 fish. You might look at the fact. But without Jesus, there is no solution. You might have a lot of problem in your life. You might have issues that most people don't know of. You see, when you factor in Jesus into your equation, the answer will always be better. When you add Jesus to your hurt, you have healing. When you add Jesus to your addiction, you have freedom. When you add Jesus to your broken dreams, you have hope. You know, whatever your situation is, your emptiness, your loneliness, when you add Jesus to that situation, you start overflowing. You start overflowing to such an extent that you will have 12 bags of baskets full left over to share with others. See, there was a reason why there was 12 baskets full leftovers. There were 12 disciples. Each one of them carried a bag. And Jesus wanted each one of them to understand the overflow of what comes from God. When God does something, there's always an overflow. It is never just the limit, you know. God doesn't act just till the limit. When God acts in your life, there will be an overflow in you. And that is what these 12 baskets depict. 12 baskets for each of the disciples to understand the overflow of God's goodness. In your life, it may be anything, emptiness, addiction, troubles. You might have hit rock bottom. But look at this miracle of feeding the 5,000 from a different perspective, of what Jesus did. You might look at your problems and your troubles. You might feel hopeless. But Jesus said that we will do it together. Jesus never asked you to find the bread. He never asked you to feed the 5,000. Jesus never asked you to feed the 5,000. He just asked you a question. And my friend, most of the time you will not have an answer to that question. You will not have an answer to that question. What are you going to do next? How are you going to overcome this problem? How are you going to get out of depression? How are you going to overcome your marriage? How are you going to overcome your addiction? My friend, you don't have the answer to all of that. That is why Jesus already said in the beginning that we are going to do it together. We will find the bread. You don't have to go and find the bread alone, my friend. Where will we find the bread? Everything that you do in your life involves Jesus. And when I talk about involving Jesus, you might think of a very spiritual thing, you know. How am I going to involve Jesus? The easiest way is, whenever you're doing anything, just pray. Just invite Jesus. It's not difficult, my friend. Inviting Jesus does not even mean that you stop trying. See, when Jesus had to feed the 5,000, He is God. He is the one who created everything from nothing. He could, at a snap of a finger, have had food at everybody's lap. 5,000 people would have had food in their laps at a snap of a finger. But Jesus asked them a question. How will we feed them? Where will you find the bread? Because, my friend, even you have something that you need to do. Jesus can perform all the miracles you want in your life. But the actualization of that miracle is up to you, my friend. You are responsible for the physical manifestation of the miracles that you want from Jesus. Jesus, you know, that woman with the bleeding problem, she didn't ask Jesus to heal him. She just went and touched his cloth. She did it. Jesus did not do anything. healing overflowed from him and healed her. He didn't do anything. He is always ready to heal. He is always ready for a miracle if you are willing to act. You might not have a lot. You might feel unworthy. You might have an inferiority complex. You might never feel enough. But with whatever you have, come to Christ. Come to Christ, and He will multiply it for you. He will multiply it for you, and you will be a blessing to many others and to yourself. When you have any issues, don't try to do it alone, my friend. Never try to do it alone. Because at that moment when you need a miracle because you cannot do it yourself. You got to understand that. You got to understand that, my friend. We talk about miracle as if it's like a parlor trick, that I want to see something happen, so I'm expecting a miracle. No, my friend. Miracle happens when there is no hope left. But miracles happen when you hope in the one hope, which is Jesus Christ. So my friends, today I ask you, if you want to expect a miracle, hope in that one hope, who is Jesus Christ. And I promise you, He will come through. He will come through. He will make it happen for you. And when it happens, your faith will be so much stronger. But remember that even after seeing one miracle, remember that Jesus is capable of another miracle. And do not stop at that one miracle, my friend. Even after that one miracle, when other impossible tasks come, always remember to invite Jesus in your life. I hope this message blesses all of you. I hope you will be able to apply it in your daily lives, and I hope you invite Jesus. Thank you. Have a blessed weekend.